peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? You know, sometimes you just need to hear something encouraging, whether it be someone's testimony or just some random bit of good news, something good that happened in someone else's life. But I watched a video today that was actually, it was definitely, it started my day off really good. It was, this young lady on YouTube gave her testimony. She was a stripper at one point, and God began to draw her, and she tells the story about how she was bothered, all the things that led up to her being a stripper, and how she got saved. And it was actually, I'm not a super emotional person when it comes to watching videos and hearing testimonies and stuff like that. I'm not gonna lie to you, but that got me this morning, and it was pretty good. Random thought, something random. Her name on YouTube is Montana Buck, I believe is her name. I don't know much about her. I just came across the video. I can't remember what I was looking up and how exactly I came across her video, but it was definitely encouraging for the day. Anyway, without further ado, Genesis chapter 30. Verse 9, let's get into this. All right, Genesis chapter 30, verse 9. I'm going to read verse 9 down through 11. When Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zilpah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh, and she called his name Gad. And that name Gad means a troop. And again, this again shows that these names are not irrelevant. Names in the Bible are not just arbitrary words that people ascribe to their children. These names had meaning. And again, another thing you see Leah, just like Rachel, giving Jacob Zilpah, her maid, to wife, as though she had that authority. Again, she didn't have the authority to do that, nor should she have. But regardless of that, and in spite of what men do wrong, whether we sin or however we go about our lives, God's will be done. That's a common theme I'm seeing, or one of the common themes, one of the many common themes I'm seeing as I go through the book of Genesis. No matter what you do, you will not undo God's work. It will be done. Verse where was I at? Verse 12 and 13. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, bare Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. And that name Asher means happy. Here's something else I thought. I wonder how these handmaids felt about them just being given to Jacob. Were they okay with this? Were they okay with being a surrogate mother? The Bible doesn't really say, but definitely something I wonder about. Verse 14, and Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest and found mandrakes and in the field and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, thy son's mandrakes. Now, I had, before looking this up, to my shame, I've read through this many times, never looked this up. And it's funny, reading right now is making me realize, and of course, I know a lot of this has to do with age and maturity, but it's making me realize how much I did in the past, how much reading I did, not only of my Bible, just of other things without stopping to really kind of break down some things I didn't really understand. And before I read past this and read about the mandrakes and just kept it moving, well, if you actually look up mandrakes, it makes this whole interaction make so much more sense. So a mandrake is a plant of the genus Atropa, growing in Spain, Italy, and the Levant. It is a narcotic, and its fresh roots are a violent cathartic. Its effect in rendering barren women prolific is supposed to be imaginary. So this thing was thought to make the barren womb fertile. So this is why Rachel wants this from Reuben. But here is my question. When I stopped and I read this, I was like, why did not Rachel just go before God and pray that God would open her womb? And then at that point, seeing everything that God had worked and everything God had done, you would think she would do that and then at that point be patient. But all of us get impatient. We all want that quick fix. This is something, what she did here is not something that's abnormal. I think this is something that's really not just unique to her. It's something that many people do. Like I said, you want that quick fix. You don't want to pray and be patient and wait for God to do something. You feel like you have to force God to, like you have to help God out. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of these people that are prone to say, you know, pray about something and just sit on your hands. No, you go about your life, you live your life, you pray, you do what things you can do, but you can't force God's hand and you can't force something to happen. You got to pray and you got to relax and trust God, but that's not what she's doing here. It kind of reminds me of, it reminds me of in this day and age, just trying to compare it to something, people who pray and they want some guidance, some direction from God. They want to know what to do. And then after praying, they go to the horoscopes. Like, really, that's where you're going for your answers? You just prayed for God to help you out and you go into horoscopes for answers instead of just doing what you do, living your life, being patient, and trust that if however God is to answer your prayer, he'll work things out. I know, kind of a tangent, but so anyway, she asked for the mandrakes. And this is the most not the most interesting, but kind of, I giggled a little bit as I read through this interaction because of exactly what happened. So we'll see what made me giggle. And she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband? And wouldest thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore he shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. They are literally prostituting out Jacob for some mandrakes, for a plant, for a narcotic. This is a drug deal. This is a drug deal for Jacob. When I read this, like I said, I chuckled. And watching all this play out, it's like, man, humans have not changed over the course of thousands of years from the beginning. Human desire, what we do, how we conduct ourselves has not changed one bit. We just maybe have different ways of doing the same thing, but there's nothing new under the sun. Verse 16, and Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and went out to meet him, and said, thou hast come unto me, for surely I have hired thee She used the word hired. With my son's mandrakes, and he lay with her that night. They exchanged narcotics for and to go further in that, like, this is his wife. Like, these are all his wives. Like, this is if you think that being a polygamist and having multiple wives will solve issues, I don't even know. Look, to all of the men out there who are polygamists that have multiple wives and have found some way to make that work, more power to you. I have a hard enough time being able to understand and deal with one woman. I could not imagine dealing with multiple wives. There is no way on this earth. Verse 17, and God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bare the 5th son. And Leah said, God hath given me my hire, because I have given maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. That name Issachar means there is recompense. Verse 19 and 20, and Leah conceived again and bare Jacob the 6th son. And Leah said, God hath endued me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And that name Zebulun means exalted. And it's interesting that these women are having so many children back to back. Well, I mean, we don't really know the time frame in between having these children, but I don't think it's very long. Jacob has a lot of kids. They were definitely being fruitful and multiplying in this day. Verse 21, and afterward she bare a daughter and called her name Dinah. Now, the funny thing is, and the interesting thing is, especially along these passages of scripture and along these Bible accounts, you don't really have the daughters' names being mentioned often. If the Bible might mention in passing that, you know, this person had sons and daughters, but you namely find the sons being mentioned. So the fact that the daughter is mentioned, clearly this is an important piece of information that we probably need to pay attention to. And something does happen with Dinah later on as we go through the book of Genesis. So just keep that in mind, that Dinah is mentioned, because that's definitely, like, when I saw this, I was like, Dinah is mentioned. Why is she mentioned here? And in any other instant, you don't really see daughters being mentioned, but the Bible, God inspiring the writer, saw fit to mention Dinah right here. And I think there's a reason for that. And her name means judgment. Verse 22. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened to her and opened her womb. See, the thing is, Rachel tried her own way, and we don't know the length of time that passed in between the account of the mandrakes and Rachel getting pregnant. But I think it's a safe assumption. I think it's a very safe assumption to say that more than likely those mandrakes did absolutely nothing. And at the appointed time God chose, he opened her womb. And I think in doing that, she figured and she learned that, you know, I have no control, because we see through these Bible accounts that what we have is we have mankind, you know, being men and women, just mankind in general, doing what we do. We think that we have control. We want to do it our own way, and it doesn't work. And we see man doing things his way, it not necessarily working out, not how it's supposed to. And then we see God doing his work. And when God works, It's magnificent and it's something to behold. Verse 23 and 24. And she conceived and bare a son and said, God hath taken away my reproach. So clearly she knew it wasn't a mandrakes that did anything. And she called his name Joseph and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. And Joseph's name means Jehovah has added. And the funny thing is, what God did in her when he opened her womb, if you know the story of Joseph, if you don't know, I'm not going to give it away if you never read through the book of Genesis. We'll definitely get to that. But Joseph was a very, let's just say, a special character. So she tried to do things within her own power and her own way, and God opened her womb at the time he appointed. And I really, as I was reading through that, I was like, man, how many times do I try to force something to happen instead of praying, right? Again, not praying and sitting on your hands, right? You pray and you have no idea if and when God is going to answer this prayer and how. It is our job to get out, to fear God, keep his commandments, live our lives in a way that's honorable to him. And however he works things out, he works things out. But we can't force things to happen. We cannot try to make ourselves God. We cannot try to put ourselves in his stead like we can make something happen. I look, I realize the older I get, the longer I've been saved, I realize two things more and more. One, just how wicked my own heart is, and just how much power I do not have. God has all power. He is my complete reliance. I can't do it. I don't have the power to do it. He's sovereign and it's all under his control. Something that we all should keep in mind. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.